So I'm here to talk about GatsbyJS. For those who haven't heard about it, it's a static site generator, and that's different from a web application. A static site only consists of static assets, JS, HTML, and CSS without a server. It talks to all services through APIs. So that's what Gatsby gives you. Hi everyone, I'm Pavitra. I work as a front-end developer in Jira for Atlassian. That's my Twitter handle. I tweet stuff sometimes. Yeah. So the first website I ever built was in the year 2000. Like, my dad was in IT department and he got a Acer computer which had Windows NT in it, and I realized I could do something that opens in a browser. I didn't deploy it or anything, but I did make a website using Dreamweaver. That was my first thing that I did. But cut to it, in 2004 I had my first Gmail ID, and I was introduced to Blogspot. It wasn't a website, but it was a place where I could put my content, and I did put some. I even was introduced to WordPress, and I made a website with it. I don't know what's happened to it now. I can't log into it. Moving on, in 2010, I was just out of a job and I was looking to make a portfolio. I was introduced to Joomla and LAMP stack. So I didn't know any of this, by the way. I didn't know how to do PHP, but I do remember moving like files through the FTP to Joomla and like seeing something. That was pretty bad experience, let me tell you. But in by 2013, I knew JavaScript and I was making websites. I was in the startup and I was making websites with jQuery, with Backbone and HTML4, no semantics. So that was good. I didn't have to. We deployed it on AWS and it was all fine. But still, there was no like format. I guess you could write whatever you want, and Backbone templates. Yeah, it worked. But in 2015, I wanted to make my own personal website, and I was looking for static site generators and like something that would give me my own website. So at that time, it was Jekyll that was very popular. It was this Ruby-based website generator where I didn't know much of Ruby or anything, but what I could do was I could write my blog posts in Markdown, and then Jekyll would somehow through Jekyll, I could deploy it to my GitHub domain, and it worked. It was pretty cool. I couldn't do a lot with it. Like, I couldn't really design it per se. I didn't know how to. But the pain point came in 2017 when I changed laptops, and I tried installing Jekyll again, and yeah, I don't know. I got some weird errors with Ruby, and I was like, fuck it, I'm not doing this. So I by 2017, it was like, I think, from 2 years I was using React. I went through Ember, Angular, and then I was using React, and I wanted to use React for everything. So I wanted to use React basically. So React, if you haven't heard, is like the most popular UI framework right now. So what did I do? I came across something called the Jamstack. So the Jamstack is a framework, kind of like a specification to build websites. To build static websites. So what it allows you is to use, it says you use JavaScript for all your client-side stuff, for all your animation and for all your view templates and all of that. And you connect to APIs only through, you connect to third-party stuff like any database you want or any third-party service through APIs, and you create templates and you generate markup out of that and deploy only this markup along with some JavaScript. So that's what Jamstack dictates. So under Jamstack, what generators exist where I could just give it some templates and it would generate a website for me. So there's plenty, turns out. The first one, as you see, is the much hated Jekyll, and but I didn't want to use that. So what I moved on to was Next.js. So Next.js is by Zeit, and it was pretty exciting when it came out. But when I used it, it was not so, it was mature, but it didn't fulfill all my requirements. Like I couldn't have markup, I didn't know how to get markup into it, and I had to do a lot of Webpack customization to get it working and stuff. Hugo was pretty famous, but I don't know Go. So then I landed on Gatsby. So GatsbyJS is the static site generator that I started to use, right? So what does Gatsby do? Gatsby, in its essence, it allows you to write view templates using React. It does quite a lot of fancy stuff. It allows you to use GraphQL for what? To connect to different services. You can have your own markdown, you can have an RSS file like feeding into it, like Gatsby will give you GraphQL APIs for it. You can have like WordPress as your content management, you can have Contentful, you can even connect to Firebase APIs, or you can connect to any random service that you have for which you have an API. And then you compile all of this stuff, Gatsby introduces Webpack into the mix, it does some magic, and then you get your HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So these are just static assets. Now you don't need a server, you don't need any other fancy stuff, you just put all of this into a CDN and your website is ready to go. You load your index HTML, you have script tags for your JS, and Gatsby does all of that. It just generates all of this out of the bat. I don't know how. I think it does some server-side rendering magic like React render to string and all of that, but it does this very well. And yeah, so earlier they were a bit slower in this compilation phase, but now even that is very fast. So yeah, end of it, I'm really happy I have my website and stuff. So about React, right? It's currently one of the most popular libraries for building interfaces. I think you could question that Gatsby stuck itself to using React, like you have to know React to use Gatsby, but I don't think it's a very big ask of you. Like you don't need to learn React only for Gatsby, you will probably use it in many other places if you are a developer and you have learned React. What makes React so powerful is that it has a component system, you write components and you compose these components, and that builds UI in a very powerful manner. And this may or may not be controversial, but it has a low API surface. Compared to other frameworks that I've used, React has the lowest surface and it's closer to JavaScript. I find myself writing more JavaScript than any other while using React. But why did Gatsby choose GraphQL? So I believe that I was not convinced until I used the framework itself. GraphQL in fact was a very good choice, because in this case all you need to do is you need to pull data from various services, right? And GraphQL inside Gatsby is used as a pulling mechanism. It converts any API to GraphQL format. Gatsby is able to generate the schema. You just need to provide a shape for the schema and it's able to generate a schema for you. And it provides this cool interface where you can go through all of your queries and see, you can explore your queries just like any other GraphQL API and all on your local system. And I found it to be a very safe space for me to explore how GraphQL works. But what Gatsby in the end gives is you can put GraphQL queries right beside your React components, and it feeds the output of the GraphQL queries into your React components as a prop, and you're good to go. You can start using them. So yeah, like I told, the biggest advantage I saw as a developer, at least for using GatsbyJS, is you can use React and GraphQL with no setup. You have an up-to-date development environment, you have hot module reloading, and you have the fastest possible compilation time with Webpack. And you have GraphQL queries. You can explore all your queries through an interface on your local machine. And you have zero performance consequences. You are not penalized for using all of this new shiny technology. You can use the whole React library ecosystem and it will not slow you down, because Gatsby will just compile all that away and will give you static assets in the end. So the plugins. When it comes to Gatsby, I think the whole Gatsby ecospace is summed up in its plugin system, right? what it gives out of the box is a very tiny set of features, and all the other features of Gatsby that you can find are through something called plugins. So it's my conclusion basically that Gatsby is wired for maximum amount of customization. So I think in building websites where all these automated solutions fall in terms of requirement is that they don't give you that specific little customization that you want to do, and Gatsby can give you that. It has an amazing array of plugins, like there are so many of them. There's a whole plugin showcase website they have built to show off their plugins. The community has built plugins, and there are plugins to connect to all kind of data sources. Like if you have all of your data in some CMS, there's probably a plugin already present to get all the data out of there. You can write plugins to transform this data to different shapes, and you can have say I want my Medium data, I can tell how long it'll take to read my article. I can get that data out of it, and I can transform this as and how I want. You can provide whole new functionality using these plugins. So I can make my website into a PWA. There's a plugin for that. I can give offline support for my website. There's a plugin for that. And it's not such a big deal to write one yourself. Like if you are not publishing it to the community, I think you can code one up pretty easily. I was able to. So yeah, I'm really selling Gatsby to you a lot. With what proof? I tried it out. I worked on my own website with this Gatsby, I had pretty specific requirements for my website, and I needed something that would fulfill all of these. So what were my requirements, right? First of all, I didn't want to use Jekyll anymore. I don't know Ruby. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to learn it. I don't want to install it on my laptop. I want to see so all these cool kids had, so when you push something to GitHub or when you send a PR, you could see a preview of it, and then you could merge or not. And I wanted that. I wanted to see how my website would look in the wild with every change that I made, not just on my local. I had all these markdown posts that I had written in my Jekyll blog, and I wanted to move all of them as is and not do a lot of work to change them. I wanted to show a lot of images. I wanted to have a whole section dedicated to all the cat pics that I had collected. I wanted to show all of these. So in the meantime, where I couldn't figure out Jekyll or do anything, I had all these posts on Medium, and I wanted to get all of them too on my website. So how do you get started with Gatsby, right? You basically install, you should have Node and NPM on your system. You should install the Gatsby CLI. It has a very convenient CLI. I installed it globally because I can start new projects easily. So Gatsby, and say Gatsby new and put your website name there. So Gatsby new, what it does is it starts it gives you this amount of boilerplate that you don't need to ever worry about, I guess, or you can build on top of, and that's its default starter pack. And there are plenty of starter packs right now. In the past 2 months, it's exploded. I think there's a starter pack for having a blog, for having an e-commerce site, or even anything that you can imagine, I guess. And then when you have this starter installed, so it runs all the dependencies, it installs everything, and then you say Gatsby develop, and you're ready to go. You can just start working on your website, writing React components, making your GraphQL requests, and it'll keep compiling, and you can see the output. So showing you the code. I don't know if I really want to show you all the code that I've written. It wouldn't make sense, and it's not really production ready tested code. It just works for my use case. But I do want to show you the basic setup that I have and how Gatsby works in terms of the structure that a website will have, and I thought I could show it in slides as well. So if you have your Gatsby starter installed and you have something set up, it will usually have a source folder on it. The source folder will have a pages folder inside it. This is kind of conventional to Gatsby, that it will expect that there's a pages folder on your in your code base. each of the files, JavaScript files inside the pages folder is converted into a page that will be there on your website. So yeah, you can have about page, home page, talks page, cafe, whatever. Adjacent to the pages folder, you will probably have a layouts folder. I did hear they are removing it in V2 because it kind of makes things hazy. So the layouts folder basically houses all these layouty components that you want, right? Like the header component that you want on every page, or some specific like theme on your body that you want on your page that you want, or the navigation or things like that. But this can get a bit confusing, so I think they're taking it out. But yeah, you can have one of your own too. Then typically beside all of this, you will have a templates folder. So the templates folder in this case is used to create, so you can create Gatsby pages programmatically, right? So Gatsby allows you that, it gives you that customization. So you can have templates for each kind of page that you want to create, and you can refer to these templates. So again, these templates are just like React components, and you can refer to them from different places, and like so I can pull up all my markdown posts and chuck them into this template, and it will create each page based on that template. If you are adventurous enough, beside your source folder there will be a plugins folder. In my case, there was no plugin to get stuff from Medium, so I was able to write that. So I had to put it inside the plugins folder. It's not really necessary for everybody, but what Gatsby does when it sees a plugin defined, it first looks into your plugins folder, pulls that, or it looks into your node modules and looks for that plugin. Is it big enough? Okay, I guess I had to fill the whole thing on a screen anyways. So Gatsby will have mandatorily a Gatsby config file. This is where you configure Gatsby per se. So configuring Gatsby is just like defining all the plugins that it needs to use and giving some parameters to these plugins. You can have some, okay, I can't zoom also. You can have some metadata. So here, if you can see, I have a plugin for React Helmet, which gives me some security stuff. Gatsby plugins are typically divided, are typically either source plugins or transform plugins. Or it's not necessary that you name them that way, but it helps the user identify what kind of a plugin it is. So the most used plugin here is the source file system plugin. So what that does is I just have to provide it with a folder on my laptop, and it pulls those files and it kind of passes it on to the transfer plugin to convert it into this GraphQL API. So yeah, I have source plugins for my post, for my data, where I have a list of all the talks I've given, and to my cat pages where I have a list of all the images and so on. So then I define plugins to make sense of Markdown and convert it into a JSON, and then GraphQL API. Then I have a plugin to convert JSON to like GraphQL API. Then so in the category of other functionality, I have plugins for styled components, I have plugins for image optimization, and I have a plugin to make my website work offline. The most advanced functionality that Gatsby provides is the Gatsby node.js. So this file, outside of all of these, this is where you can do most of the magic that you want to do with Gatsby. Like it provides certain API, and you need to export certain functions using which you can generate pages on the fly, or you can hook into the Webpack steps that it has, or you can hook into the Babel plugins that it has, and you can pretty much customize any part of Gatsby using this file. And it just gives this one place where you can do this stuff. Or if you think all your stuff is too much for this page, you just extract it out into its own plugin, and the plugin is basically another Gatsby Node.js file. That's it. So in this plugin, what I'm doing is I'm pulling out all my data, all my posts from the Markdown thing, and I'm using the blog post template and creating pages for each of the posts. I'm pulling out again my Medium post, and I'm using the Medium post template to create a page there, and so on. It's up to your imagination what you want to do with it. The next step in my Gatsby journey was discovering Netlify. Even though it's not closely related to this, I think it's instrumental that you understand it. It makes things so easy. So what Netlify does is it allows you to have continuous deployment of your website. So you hook it into your GitHub repo, and every commit that you make to your repo master is deployed automatically. And if there's a PR to your repo, then that a preview is created where you can go check out if it looks fine and before merging it. So Netlify gives you domains which look like this, Sharp, Surly or whatever, and you can point it to your custom domain for as convenient to you. So at the end of all of this, I have my website pavitrakodemart.com, and I'm pretty happy with it. It does all I want, and whenever I wanted to make changes to it, it's just been changing React components for me. So to conclude, I think Gatsby is a really powerful tool, and it kind of blurs the line between what's a website and what's a web application. You still can have interaction within it. But it's best used for a website. Customization is at the core of its functionality. I think that's why it's been so widely successful, because you can customize every single part of it without that much of a hoopla around it. Another thing that I found out recently was, so I prepared this, so I proposed this talk to Shaki around 2-3 months back, and in that amount of time, so basically I was going to give you all a talk about this open source library that I found, but a couple of months back it's now angel invested and incorporated into a company. So basically they are building out a lot of features right now, and I think a lot more will come. I think it's kind of future proof because of its plugin system. Because I recently found out they have this integration with, they have a plugin that integrates with this library called GatsbyJS. So what the library does is it crunches all the data in your Google Analytics, and it finds out, kind of predicts the user path, and it's able to provide that information to your website so that you can preload stuff according to this prediction. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it must have been, and it looked pretty easy to add it to Gatsby itself. And PWAs, your website can be mobile ready, and it can be a PWA, and you don't have to do anything but include a plugin in your configuration. So I think Gatsby is the bee's knees, really. So that's my talk. Any questions?